Every now and again, children make mistakes. They break things, they have accidents, and sometimes those things are costly. Should we be making our children pay for the thing they broke, for the accident that they were a part of? Today's conversation, natural consequences, accountability, and what's fair when it is their fault or when it's not their fault. We'll try to answer those questions so that you can navigate those tricky situations whenever they occur in just a sec. It's next on the Happy Families Podcast. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families Podcast, real parenting solutions every single day. It's Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We're Justin and Kylie Coulson. Today, Kylie, you've asked for the start of the pod. You have an incident to discuss.
I was talking with some mum friends the other day and a situation came up. One of my friends' sons had invited his friend over to play and they were in the lounge room playing with the Wii, and the controller slipped out of his friend's hand and smashed their brand new TV.
So when I hear you say that, my initial response is the controller slipped out of his hand. So that strikes me as questionable. Like,
so the mum actually saw it happen.
Oh, okay. So it is legit?
So it is legit.
Okay.
And she knew that there was no, monkey business going on.
Well, wasn't a kid
silliness.
having a tantrum because he's losing? Okay. How old are the kids?
8.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And so her question that she posed to all of us was, I've never been in a situation where anything like this has happened before. Do I ask the parents to replace our TV?
Mm-hmm. And what was the consensus?
The overwhelming response was, no, you can't do that. But there was definitely conversations around the fact that if it was me, I would be letting the parents know about the incident, and I would be hoping that they would, offer to kind of help out in some way.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, would you agree with that? Would you let the parents know, hey, just wanted you to know this happened today? Or would you just let it be? Would you expect that they should be paying for the TV, especially you've got a brand new TV? TVs are sometimes very expensive. What are your thoughts?
So I think that relationships matter more than things. And it would depend on the relationship I had with the family. That's the first thing. And then secondly, I wouldn't be expecting an 8-year-old to
cough up $3 or $4 grand for a new TV.
Obviously. Yeah. But I would also like to think that together as parents, we could think of a way that they could feel like they have contributed to helping restore something that they broke.
Okay.
Because regardless if it was an accident or maliciously done, kids carry the guilt of the experience more times than not, and giving them a way that they can make restitution for what has taken place helps them to feel like they're a good contributor.
Okay.
So we've never actually had this experience happen in our home at all.
Our children have never broken anything, accidentally or maliciously?
No, we haven't had any friends really that have done any damage.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we've never had any friends.
No, but our kids have definitely. and probably more so with cars.
Yeah, well,
at the other end of the spectrum.
We can talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, where do we go from here?
Well, what would you have done if it was us?
Okay, so I think that I'm really cautious of using the word consequences, because whenever I hear the word consequences, it usually relates to how should I punish a child. But there's definitely something to discuss here.
So why don't you break it down for us? What's the difference between a natural consequence or a logical consequence?
Okay, so a natural consequence is when the remote flies out of your hand and hits the TV, it breaks the TV, and now we don't have a TV anymore. That's a natural consequence. A logical consequence is completely different. Let me break it down even more. I think that it's worth spending a minute on this because I hear about this on the blogs all the time. I hear about this on social media all the time, and it's really important to make the distinction between them. It's one that I find troubling, I've got to be honest, because to me, this distinction reveals how adults continue to manipulate and coerce children even when they think they're being progressive. So natural consequence, that's what happens on its own without any adult intervention. You don't wear your jacket, you get cold. You don't eat, you get hungry. These are not consequences that are imposed by anyone. They just unfold
naturally.
Yeah, you treat people unkindly in the playground, you likely won't have any friends. But we need to be careful about standing back and smugly saying, I knew that was going to happen, while your child suffers, like you're trying to teach them a lesson. A lot of parents will say, well, you're just going to experience the natural consequences. And to me, a compassionate, loving parent will intervene. The natural consequences of playing too close to the road are that you might get hit by a car.
But you'd never do that.
Of course, the natural consequences of placing your hand on a hot stove is you will burn your hand. And a parent would say, well, I would never let my child do that because the stakes are too high, the risk is too great. I still think that when we can see quite clearly the natural consequences of A, B, or C, it's worth some level of intervention, so we can say to our children, I'm nervous about this for you. The natural consequences of you as a 15-year-old going out and drinking too much alcohol is that you are going to hurt yourself or somebody else eventually.
Be hurt.
Yeah, that's right. It's not going to end well here. And so we do need to, I think, intervene and prevent natural consequences, because there are better ways to learn lessons. Smug I told you so-ism isn't in the best interest of our kids. Logical consequences, though, this is where things get really insidious. So logical consequences are punishments that are dressed up in reasonable sounding clothing. And what I mean by that is adults impose them, but then they claim that they're somehow natural or inevitable. For example, if you don't put your toys away, I'm going to take them away for a week. Or I'm going to take the iPad away from you. If you're late to dinner, you don't get to eat. So that's not a logical consequence. That's an arbitrary penalty.
It's a punishment.
That adults have invented and then enforced because they think that it's going to teach a lesson, but it teaches all the wrong lessons. And my question here is, well, why do kids need to suffer consequences at all? The entire framework assumes that children only learn through suffering, which is it's patently false. It's based on behaviorism, which is an old form of psychology, the idea that we have to manipulate people through punishments and rewards. But kids are thinking, feeling people who are trying to make sense of the world, and they need our help, not our clever punishment schemes. So for the rest of this conversation, and after the break we're going to pick this up, instead of asking what consequence should I impose because the TV was broken by the remote control, or because the window was broken, or the vase was broken by a wayward ball, or somebody being careless, or because somebody put their shoulder through the wall because they were wrestling too rowdily, or maybe even they were angry. Instead of saying what consequences should I impose, I think it's much more effective to say, what does this child need right now? How can I help them to learn? Discipline is about problem solving. So what problem are we trying to solve together? That creates a relationship based on collaboration and trust rather than control, and that's kind of what I'm working towards. So after the break, I'm going to talk about why we need kids to use their oar and get out of bed. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? And we're also going to talk about those things where things really do happen by accident versus those things that happen out of anger with intent, and whether or not problem solving might actually need to include some form of reparation. So that's coming up in just a sec. Stay with us. We're talking punishments and consequences and what to do when mistakes happen or when damage or breakage occurs. Maybe it's a laptop that's been broken, or perhaps a car has been crashed, depending on the age of your child. Or maybe...
Or they've left their school jumper at school and lost it. This is like the fourth time this year.
Yeah, or perhaps it's Mother's Day and the kids have decided to give you a bath. They've turned the taps on and then they've forgotten to turn the taps off, and they've flooded downstairs, which happened in our house a few years ago and cost thousands of dollars in replacing.
Well, it was followed by a 12-handed massage.
So what do we do here? What do we do about this? One of my favourite phrases to talk to parents about is using your oar and getting out of bed. So the kids, when they hear me talking about this, they roll their eyes. Like, this has been hit so many times in our house. But when the kids do something wrong, they often go to blame, excuse, and denial. That is, they get into bed. Blame, excuse, denial. And I'm really big on saying, no, you need to use your oar here. Own it. Be accountable. Show some responsibility. Ownership, accountability, responsibility. OAR. That's your oar. BED, blame, excuse, and denial. And what I'm really looking for from a parenting point of view is, if my children are in bed, then they can't be taught. They can't problem solve. They can't figure out a way to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, it's not their fault, so they're not willing to take responsibility for it. They're not willing to recognise the part that they may have played in it.
There's no
and
ownership.
therefore there's no conversation to be had.
Yeah, no accountability and ownership. So what I'm interested in is, what part did you play here? How can you own that? How can you be accountable? How can you be responsible? That's what adults do. That's maturity.
So I'm thinking about the story that we shared last week on the pod where you destroyed dinner.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out again.
Well, I'm sharing it because I don't think it matters what age you are.
We all make mistakes.
We make a mistake.
Yes.
How did you feel at the end of that process?
So, I spent 2.5 hours on dinner and I was devastated. I was absolutely... I was heartbroken because I was so looking forward to the meal. It was late at night. We were all exhausted and hungry. And I felt like, I actually felt like weeping. But instead, we laughed and I said, I've completely ruined this. I was a little bit angry at our 21-year-old daughter who had told me to buy condensed milk rather than coconut milk. And I rang her and told her, but then she felt awful. She almost burst into tears on the phone. And I felt awful for bringing guilt into that conversation because it was an honest mistake on her part. And so I just owned it. I said, guys, I've ruined dinner. Pizza is on me tonight. We're eating pizza. What sort of pizza do you want?
So often when we find ourselves in a place where somebody makes a mistake, someone breaks something, whatever, our natural response is to get angry, right? And we lay on the guilt because we want them to understand and recognise the price that mistake has cost.
Yep.
And yet you already knew it.
Yes.
You're an adult, but it doesn't matter whether you're an adult or a child. You recognise and feel the guilt and the weight of that mistake.
So let me share two other examples from our family. We've shared this on the podcast many times, but if you're a new listener, here's the short version. On day one of our eldest daughter getting her L's, she asked you, Kylie, if she could go for a drive, even though I'd said, I'll teach her tonight. Please say no, just take her to school. You acquiesced, you gave in, she rode off the car within the first few minutes of being behind the wheel. And we just gave her a hug and said, you know what, mistakes happen. People matter, things don't. And
then the tough love was you said you're going to get in the car and drive.
That's right. You're going to have to learn to drive a manual and I will get another one by tonight and we'll figure this out. We were poor uni students. We didn't have the resources for it, but we made it happen. And now she can competently drive a manual vehicle and has done for about 10 years. The second example, though, is a 21-year-old daughter who was driving late at night in my brand new Kia Cerato GT, and she hit a kangaroo and wrote my car off. I think I'd done like 20,000 kilometers on it or less. It was only very, very new. And we had explained to all the kids that once you get a driver's license, if you crash the car, you will be responsible for the excess. For the young driver excess. We'll cover anything else that's required if necessary, but you cover the excess. And we did ask her to do that. There was nothing malicious. It was an accident. She couldn't control the kangaroo. She was being attentive. But she was 21 years old. She had a part-time job. She had money in the bank. And we just said, this one's not on us. Insurance will cover the rest of the car, but you had the crash and there is a price to be paid. I don't know if we did the right thing, by the way. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. As I'm sharing the story, I'm feeling quite guilty about the fact that we charged a 21-year-old a young driver excess. Maybe we shouldn't have. But in that case, we thought, well, what needs to happen here? Our daughter needs to understand that there are costs associated with crashing a car, and she's very lucky that with a brand new car, a $40,000 car, it's only going to cost her $2,500.
When I think about all of these scenarios that we've spoken about, to me, it always comes down to the age of the child, the circumstances we find ourselves, and what's actually happened. So I don't feel guilty that we charged our 21-year-old the excess because we had explained to her that part of the risk of driving a car was that you could be in an accident, and whether or not you were responsible for that accident or not,
there is an excess.
There is an excess. So she understood the risks.
And she was older and she had the cash, although it still really hurt her.
It really hurt her.
Yeah.
But she learned really important lessons. And I think that so often as parents, we want to save our kids from having these experiences and learning.
Well, we had another daughter who had 3 crashes, and that ended up costing her about $8,000. And we did not lift her out of that. We just said, you forgot to put the handbrake on, or you drove up the back of somebody, or whatever the third one. I can't even remember the third one now. And we just said, this is the price of driving a car and having an accident. And unfortunately, you will have to carry that cost. Here's the thing. Problem solving, again, what instead of saying what consequences should I impose, we want to ask, what does this child need? How can I help them learn? What problem are we solving together? And so there's value in having the conversation ahead of time with some things you can, like driving a car, but there are also accidents. I just want to emphasize this. Sometimes that problem solving may include reparations, but it should be worked out together. If our children threw a controller at a TV, were playing a game and a controller slipped out of their hand and hit a TV and broke it in a friend's home and we found out about it, I would say to the friends, guys, this is a really awkward and tricky situation. I'm not sure the best thing to do here, but I would like my child to make some form of a contribution to reparations here, and I'd love to bring them in on it. What do you think would be appropriate? Like, can they wash cars and mow lawns for a few weeks? Can they do something here that's going to help? I can't expect an 8-year-old to buy a new $3,000 TV, and as the parent, I don't necessarily feel responsible for it. The kids were playing a game, accidents happen, but I'd like my child to make sure that they're not in blame, excuse, and denial, and to have a level of ownership, accountability, and responsibility.
But that's what's so important about this process. It's about the conversation.
It's about the conversations.
It's actually about the conversation.
Yeah, not how much money comes out of one wallet and goes into another. There we go. We've solved the problems of the world today. I really enjoyed that. That's a fun thought exercise. I'm glad we got to talk about that one. Hey, tomorrow on the pod, we're going to talk about those tricky conversations that we encourage you to have with your kids on Sundays. We've got a tough question coming up. That's tomorrow, and a whole lot more. Mummy Wine Time. I've got an interview on Wednesday with Victoria Vanstone, the host of the Sober Awkward podcast. If you don't mind a tipple, I think that you might enjoy that chat, and a whole lot more, all happening this week on the pod. Thanks so much to Justin Rulon, who produces the podcast. Mim Hammonds looks after research, admin, and other support. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier, we'd love for you to visit us at happyfamilies.com.au or check out our socials, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families on Instagram and Facebook.